Yeah, we signed it. We'll put it over here because somebody will want it.
Perel, just to see if you got any cuts on your hands.
You think?
Oh yeah, he finds them.
We're waiting for 2 members to show up. They'll be here in just a second, folks.
As long as Nate didn't hit a deer.
Yeah.
Why don't you close it down and keep on going?
Depends what you're in.
Well, if it's up in the back seat, you just keep on going.
If you're in a Jeep Patriot and you just happen to touch it, it won't break the headlights, but it'll break the radiator. I've seen it done.
Oh.
Well, we still got what, maybe 2 or 3 minutes. Good travel time before it
Does anybody
overheats.
else need copies of the proposed budget? That's what the meeting is, the preliminary budget meeting tonight.
Do you have that on?
I think there were copies laying right here.
Do I need to make more?
I don't know.
I got one.
There's Willie.
This is a stick-up.
What are you gonna do?
First page change.
Nate, I'm just guessing, but I'm thinking you were speeding pretty
Yeah,
hard.
that was the best I could do.
I've made that trip a whole bunch of times.
The deer were a little thick.
We'll call the meeting to order. This meeting will be concerning the preliminary budget, first half of it. And that is the only business that will be discussed at this time. We'll stand for the pledge, please. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
If we roll call, please.
All right. Town clerk present?
Here.
Roll call.
Over here.
Okay.
Nate Gaten here.
Dave Stapleton here.
Thank you. Okay, we have before you the preliminary budget. I will say that it's a little late simply because we did not get the final audit review and report. So, but we're within our time, so. Is there any discussion on the budget? Any amendments that you'd like to do before we approve it?
I don't have any amendments, but I would just like, everybody needs to be aware that we're gonna have to change some of the rates.
Rates for what?
Well, our water and sewer, our hookups, and I know we've talked about it in the past.
Fees.
Oh, you mean the fees?
The fees, yes.
Well, we'll have to discuss that at a different meeting, so.
Yeah, but that
It
affect
pertains to
the
the
budget.
budget, sure.
Right, it will, but we can amend that as we change the fees at a later date.
Right.
And then those amendments will be sent to the state along with the budget,
Okay,
okay?
okay.
I think what Tim's trying to say is that we have some obvious shortfalls, not negatives, but items on these lists that are pretty darn slim.
Right, and we did have to do a lot of cuts this year, so.
You know, we didn't have the expenses that we had the year before,
Right,
so I
our
hope that,
expenses have been fairly low for the last 3 years, actually.
well, we had a ton of stuff go wrong with our plumbing,
Right,
and that was costly.
yes, it
And we
was,
did not have that this summer,
right.
so I had hoped that we were gonna be in a little bit better shape than we are, but we are tight.
Yes, ma'am. I guess then I can make a motion.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Somebody with their hand up,
I mean, as far as the public, I'd like to comment on this because
that's why we're here.
I see some huge discrepancies, huge.
Would you like to share those with us?
I'll give you this sheet because I did the math the other day. On the back sheet, you'll find a sheet that says exactly how the math was performed. So if you take the general fund, you're running right now, as it stands with your proposed budget, at a negative 9.86%, which means for every dollar you bring in, you're losing 10 cents. If you do the water fund, and you take it, it's a 57%. So every dollar you bring in, you're 57 cents going out. You just ate. That's according to what your budget is. And it goes on down. On the very bottom line on your total enterprise fund, if you take the two numbers, the 412,387.33, add it to the 3,113.65, you come up with 726,052.33, and you subtract your expenditures, you actually have 240,447.33. You're $32,000 off.
As you know, maybe you don't, but this is a projected budget, projected on our revenues
I
from
under-
last year. We cannot say exactly what we're gonna get in revenues this year. Now, we have had both state, the auditor, and the state accounting person, Darla Erickson and Tammy, have looked at this budget. if they thought that there was something wrong with it, and they thought that we were in the hole in any way, and that was the reason we cut the budget so much this year, then they would have said something before now. So I don't know,
When you're $32,000 off on a calculation, that's just the bottom figure, that's your figure. That isn't anything I've done.
do you actually know anything about government accounting?
Do
Do
you?
you?
Yes, I do.
I don't think you do.
At
I don't think you
32
know shit.
When you
Well,
put,
that's just your opinion.
No,
When you-
that's
A
not.
lot of people.
when you
pretend-
put $32,000 off on a math problem and you present it to the public, there's a problem, whether you're government or not.
Government budgets are totally different from anything else that you will do. Like I
I'm not
said,
saying they're not
we
different,
have
Shirley.
had, I know, but we have had both auditors and the accounting service for the state look at this budget.
And they weren't
using
upset
our-
about a $32,000 adding difference?
There was not, as far as they were concerned, a $32,000 deficit.
Check it. Take the bottom line and check it. You have a smartphone, you can add.
I don't
When you
have a
add your
smartphone
balance
with
and your
me.
revenues, you have 726,052. You deduct your expenditures from it and it gives you 240,447. It does not give you 272,077.3.
Makes sense to me.
If you have the balance and revenues added together, which gives you a total, take your expenditures out of there, and what you end up with is the left. Or the right there, that's just math too. Balance and revenues are both pluses. The expenditure is the minus. The balance is what's left.
$242,000.
Right, that makes sense.
Yep. I don't have a smartphone, I had to pull it up on the computer and go to the math calculator. Big numbers,
So
I
how
can see
did we
them too.
get that figure, Shirley? Are these, the figures that we put into this?
It's in the budget.
No, what I'm asking is, are these, is this on a software that actually does the calculation for you?
It's on a spreadsheet,
Yes.
and I had Amber help me with the finances.
So
So there's
the-
something that we might have missed somewhere along the line that doesn't add up to
Yeah,
where it
this
is.
software is not working correctly, obviously.
So, I mean, we can change that before we adopt it. We can adopt it at a later date.
So I would be concerned if,
Others,
others are incorrect. And it looks as though you found a couple different discrepancies.
Well, I mean, if you did business, there's no way. I mean, if I went to a bank and tried to propose this, they'd look at me and laugh. Anytime your expenditures are more than your revenues, you've got huge problems.
Yep. Money for bankruptcy.
That's the problem. What's your opinion is the fix?
Well,
What's
there's
your
a couple
opinion
things,
we're gonna
there's
fix?
some more things
Pardon
in
me?
here
You're
that,
the council. You're the
She's
ones in charge.
speaking. I asked her a question, sir. Will you let her answer it?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
there's some more problems that I just feel they're huge problems.
Are you gonna share those with us?
Yes, one of the deals is, I found in here, there was stuff that, let me give you an idea. First of all, when it come to the audit was $11,500 out of water, $11,500 out of sewer, and, the general fund, it was less in. And then there was another sewer deal that was for, hold on here, because I have a ton of notes. There was another sewer deal on an audit for $400. So it didn't make sense, and I think that the audit should be equally distributed amongst those funds.
The reason why it isn't, may I answer this, the reason why it isn't because our general fund is, will be in the negative and we can't do that, so we decided that we would have to take it out of more of our enterprising funds than out of our general, because we get more money out of there than we do in our general. That's why Tim had brought up upping some of the, increasing some of the rates to help with the shortfalls.
Right.
Because of that reason. We would have done it that way, we did it at first, can't have a negative balance.
Okay, we can't have a negative balance, but you also can't go ripping off our water and our sewer funds to cover a lot of stuff that is being covered. When
Are
we
you- you
raise
know
the
that for a fact?
wages, when we put the funds in for, out of the water and the sewer for wages, and we have $28,000 out of each fund coming for wages. And it is Montana law. You cannot take from one fund to pay for another fund. We have people who mow lawns and they're being paid out of water and sewer. We have, and Jan's wages were 14,000 something last year out of the administrative. It's down to 2,000 this year.
And state law says that we can, because everything that Jan does covers all of our enterprise funds. The major part of her work, other than revenue and banking and deposits and things like that, have to do with the water and sewer, the billing,
A lot of her
everything.
stuff does, but
So
if
we
you're-
can, and we have in the past 15 years taken money out of the water and sewer fund to pay wages.
so how much are you increasing our water and sewer to pay for all of this?
We're not increasing, I mean the rates?
Yeah,
We're not increasing water and sewer rates at all.
I
What
don't
they
think-
were
I don't
talking
think
about
anybody got a
of
notice that-
increasing
that
was
you
the
were
fees
increasing.
that we charge for new taps, service and things like that.
you're not gonna have to increase those at all. And you can keep the
We don't
reserves.
have plans to increase anything other than possibly,
Here's what's happened in the past. In the past, they started taking the wages out of the water and sewer because they never ran their general fund like they were supposed to on a percentage rate, like Kristen had explained last year, that you always maintain a certain amount.
right,
They ran it and they ran it and they ran it like that. And they continued to run it like that. And they didn't want to, oh, by God, we won't raise the rates, but we'll just keep pulling money out of this fund. And that's when our rates got jacked so flippin' high. So when I see huge increases like this, I'm wondering what happens to the next person down the road.
May I address this? I talked to the auditor about our percentages, and the auditor said that the percentages that come out of the enterprises and the general and all, and those funds can be based upon how much time I spend on each one of them.
right,
And that's what we did.
right.
So we adjusted it to take less out of the general and more out of the enterprise funds.
What
Makes
about
sense
the
to me.
police fund? The police fund just looked kind of weird.
Yeah,
to
there
me.
was a huge discrepancy on the police fund that I looked through, and it's not on that sheet, Jan. It was on the first original sheet that we got,
The one showing like $5,800, is that what?
Yeah, we-
that showed, no, it showed $25,000 worth of overtime.
It was not overtime, and it wasn't $25,000 of overtime. It was a amount of
Fee.
money that was in the police fund from way back when we first contracted, and the clerk at that point did not put it in the right account. So you had a deficit of $25,000 in that
Hold on,
line, when
hold
the
on.
police contract was only $50,000.
Hold on, Shirley, I mean, it's in the deal, and it's,
There was another line though, I think you'll find that offset that,
And it's a zero balance now.
yeah.
It's there, so
I'm not making stuff up and pulling stuff out of a hat. It's right there, $25,000.
And if you look over here at the percentage, see the zeros right there?
Okay.
That means that that money was not ever in
Why
there.
was it entered in here?
Because when Kristen came over and helped with the budget a year ago, all of those figures were in that last year's budget, and it just had zeros in it. She never deleted those out of there.
Because well, no,
I
what
know
I'm
it
saying,
looks horrible,
it comes in 1920.
I
It didn't
know.
come in Kristen's year, that she
Kristen
came
was
last.
the one that
But it-
came and worked with Jan on the budget for 1920.
But our software pulls everything over from year to year.
Yeah,
So it's there.
It's not
Whichever
like
it may
it's-
be.
Yeah. Why are we arguing the point it's not in our present budget?
Okay. I just was questioning it.
Yeah,
I mean, if you see it, don't you question it?
of course.
And I mean, that's what I was questioning.
It was just things that were pulled over from our software, from budget, from last year. And then we just haven't done anything.
Well, if you look at last year's budget, there were a lot of lines in every single department that had a number in it, and then for the yearly total, it was all zeros. There was
Just needed to be
0%,
cleaned up.
0%, 0%, which means we just cleaned out that number and left it without any budget at all.
There was accounts that we deleted even,
Right, so
because
it's
they
not
were
that,
redundant.
It would be helpful though, when you hand one sheet out like this, and then you turn around and you hand another sheet out like the new one.
Would you rather not have one until we were done?
No, I'm just saying, when you hand the first one out and then you turn around and change it in between, I mean, if you're gonna delete accounts, it'd be helpful to say, we've deleted these
I think
accounts.
that
I
was
think that
discussed
was
in the meeting.
discussed,
I know for a fact it was discussed.
yes.
Well, you may have discussed that you were deleting accounts, but when I get the first account, the first accounting of the budget with it on it, and then I get the second one without it on it, and it
I
wasn't.
wonder where it went.
I'm sitting there
agree.
going, what are we
Yeah.
doing?
I think
That's-
that when Jan
fine.
gave you the very first copy
That was from all the years.
Yeah, it was messy.
previous,
It was
yeah.
messy,
very
yeah, because like I said, it rolls over from year to year when you have
Right,
to do it.
and
it's
so, but the
it's
most recent copy that Tammy got, or whoever came and got it,
This is the most recent copy, it is the ones that were handed out tonight. And so we'll have to.
wasn't a copy before this meeting last week sometime given that had a
It was-
figure that wasn't in it?
That was the one you gave me, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's the one I got.
So it was the same, I think it was the same one as like this one.
Okay.
We
With
haven't,
with some pencil markings? That one?
No, it was the
No.
one that, with the budget prep,
Oh.
before we fine tuned the whole budget.
oh, that one was probably, that's the budget prep one,
Okay,
not the Excel stuff.
right. It's not an Excel.
So,
Is anybody else? Were you done? Excuse me. Obviously, okay.
Okay.
What I'm hearing is that there's a
No.
obvious shortfall, or the budget is really, really tight. My question is, what's the council intend to do? You're saying, what are we gonna do?
No, I was asking if you had any ideas. Not
Well,
what
you gotta
were gonna
balance
do.
it.
You
You
can't do
gotta-
anything.
We've
At some
balanced-
point, you need to start building some money in the bank. You can't spend more than you bring in, and you can't spend down to just a few dollars. As a town, you have to have revenue to survive. If there's no ideas up here, my idea is maybe we need a new council that has ideas.
Did you vote in the last election?
I absolutely did.
That's where that changed.
Yeah. So,
Thank you.
And if you look at the revenue sheet, our revenues, we have cash on hand and in the revenues that are well above what we budgeted for expenses.
yeah, I see that.
But you
But
don't
you don't
want to
have
use
enough to
revenue.
survive on.
We're surviving the way we can right now with everything else going on, with this COVID crap going on. We
You know,
have people that
everybody
just
wants
don't.
to put it on COVID.
Yep, We have had
It's-
people
it's not
in the
COVID.
several last months, the last 6 months, that just have not paid any bills whatsoever.
You know,
So
It's-
we've just gotten to the point where we just turn them off.
everybody wants to use it.
It's not just that, it's, you know.
I think the obvious is that giving a $2 to $3 pay raise to Jan and some others possibly, and you also proposed overtime even for part-time employees for less than 40 hours, which no doubt is illegal. I think that all of those pay raise possibilities should be totally eliminated, obviously, because if indeed there's $32,339.70 less revenue than you originally reported, that's not just a little bitty shortfall,
Let me ask
it's a
you
real
this.
problem.
When we were doing the hiring and doing the interviewing, you came out strongly against hiring Jan, evidently, the letter and everything. But you were willing to pay $21 an hour to another person to get her hired.
Yeah, and it would have saved the
Me
city
too.
a lot of money right
Yeah.
now,
It would have.
absolutely.
And how do you figure that?
And it wasn't $21 an hour, it was 18.
Yes, it was.
It was 18,
18.
it was 18.
On her application,
And
she
beside,
wanted
and
21.
my point is, she would have saved a ton of money. And I think that
how do you-
anybody,
How do you know that?
well, for one thing, she knew the law part really well. She knew how to fix the books by herself. And she is a very efficient operator. She was a tremendous deal for $18 an hour. And fact is, the council even knew that at the time. I heard council members even speaking such. I wish the rest of you guys had been here. It was obvious. She was extremely well qualified, and she would have saved a lot of money.
Okay. First of all, she wasn't extremely well qualified in our computer system. She had not used it before. Government accounting is different than being a person that does part-time work at family services and a few other places. I'm not saying she wasn't intelligent. I didn't interview her, so I don't know. But I have talked to her several times, and I realize that, yes, she has a lot of intelligence, as a lot of people do, including you people right here. What I'm saying is that we hired Jan, and at $21 an hour, I don't know how in the world you could have expected her to save us money when she doesn't know the system, she didn't know the software. She would have had to have been trained on that software, the same as anybody else that comes in here, that thinks they know everything. I don't know about this software. I wasn't trained on this software. Legally, I can't even go on that computer and do anything.
You're misrepresenting what her qualifications were and her experience, and this is bogus. I was there, I heard what she had to say, and she could back it up. Everything you're saying is bogus. Everything.
Well, I wasn't there, so.
I'd like to add something to that. What you're just saying right now is all speculative. She could have lasted 3 weeks and quit and went someplace else. So everything that you say is completely conjecture. Do you realize that?
I'll tell
How
you
much
what,
do we have to pay?
there's a lot less conjecture than what she's saying.
Well, I don't think there's much difference.
I do.
Terry,
May I make one point?
okay.
The lady was given the opportunity, and she turned it down.
Because you wouldn't pay her $18 an hour.
That's
why.
right.
It was,
You were gonna pay her the same as what you were gonna pay Jan.
no, it was not.
You weren't
We were
her
gonna pay her
$18
the
an hour.
same wage we offered to Jan, and she would not accept
Well,
it.
that's my point.
That's what
Exactly.
he
She
said.
shouldn't have to take that wage.
Well, and that's up to that person.
And to the council.
But that's not what we're discussing here.
I'm just happy I'm not the asshole at this meeting tonight. I'm saving myself for when you have a general meeting though.
Okay. Tammy, quit.
I have one more question. So what are we doing about the garbage? Are those rates raising?
No. In our contract,
They
which
need
was
to.
signed for
Kidding me?
10 years,
Mike?
excuse me, I'm sorry,
Go ahead.
in the contract that was signed with the city, and this, it was 10 years, a 10-year contract, and that was done 5 years ago. The Republic Services will raise our rates to the city 2.17% every single year, and it will go up every single year. Next year, it might be 2.919% or 3%. Your rates will stay the same. Our rates go up.
Here's my question for that. 2 years ago, or 2.5 years ago, when Brenda Cassell was here, and you guys were talking about the 2.9% or whatever, I raised my hand and said, aren't you going to up everybody's rate to account for that? You couldn't answer the question. You referred me to Brenda, who said, it's okay, don't worry about it. And this is ridiculous. When you have a utility company that raises rates, everybody gets a jump in the bill. You guys,
Not according to the contract that was signed 5 or 6 years ago. That contract was signed with Republic Services when I was still on the
That's not
council.
what she's saying, Shirley.
And yes, they raised their rates.
no, I'm
but-
saying
Okay,
you,
would you be happy if we raised up your rate? for
I'm
your
not
garbage?
exactly happy about it, but the whole deal is this is business. If I get charged for something and I have a business and I'm selling water and my supplier charges me 5 cents more, if you don't think I'm not gonna charge the person walking in the door 5 cents more, you're nuts. It's pretty common business practice.
Well, according to that contract, that was where our rate was at, to our constituents, to our service public. Our rates were raised by Service Republic to the town. But in the contract, we aren't allowed to raise those rates until the next
Well,
contract comes
why
up.
in the world,
I
as a
don't know.
city, would you not think about doing that? You and Tim both apparently voted on that. Why would you not think that if you're going to be getting an increase every year, that you have to adjust?
Can I answer that? We are thinking about it.
Thank you.
An honest answer, right there.
Any other comments?
I would like to say something. The water and sewer funds, it appears, were being depleted for a lot of years, and due to similar such situations which Tammy referred to. So when the water project came up and the sewer project came up, there were no backup funds. So therefore, they got their grants and all that, but what the town is paying is a lot of money every year on interest. And that, the rates have gone up